quite a bit of Marvel-related events have unfolded in the last few days, and no, I'm not just talking about Sony being greedy for the 700th time. Instead, I'm talking about this brand new 20-minute gameplay showcase on the upcoming Square Enix Avengers game, packed to the brim with this, and oh hey, she doesn't look like Fiona from Shrek anymore. Back at E3 when the game was first showcased since the eruption of Mount Krakatoa in 1883, it seemed promising, but I was still hesitant. After all, how am I meant to judge a game by 4 seconds of gameplay? Yet with this new showcase, I immediately decided to pre-order the game, because admittedly, it looked absolutely excellent. So while I wait another year for that to arrive, I thought I'd take a look back at every single Avengers game, most of which are utterly terrible and make me regret my life choices, but hey, who knows what gems I might discover in here. Well, without further ado, welcome back to Totally Not a Copy of Godzilla Mendoza, where today we begin our retrospect on every single game based on the Avengers. Jump into my desperate cry for help, I would like to set one ground rule, and that ground rule is that no matter what game, so long as it has the core Avengers, will be included in this retrospective. So for example, let's say a game has Wolverine or the X-Men or the Fantastic Four, any characters of this such, so long as it has Captain America, the Hulk, Iron Man, and etc., it will be included because it still has the core team of Avengers. So yes, the Ultimate Alliance trilogy will be counted. Well, I consider it less of a trilogy as much as it is 2 excellent games and one slop of was decent. But hey, that's just my opinion. Please don't kill me. So, our first game up is the arcade classic Captain America and the Avengers. Wait, but why is it called Captain America and the Avengers and not just the Avengers? You don't even play as Captain America half the time. He's only one of the God knows how many characters. What was the point in that? Was Captain America just popular at the time? He didn't have a cartoon show on the air, unlike the X-Men or Iron Man or any characters like that. He wasn't even big at that point. Why? No, seriously, why? Is it just because he had a movie a year prior and they thought, oh, that movie was excellent, it made us tons of money, let's just capitalize on it? No. It made you less than a breadcrumb. Why did you bother with this? Now, as I just mentioned, this game is often considered an arcade classic, but of course, it's 2019, not 1991, so it's almost impossible to walk down to my local arcade and play Captain America and the Avengers for a quarter. So, what do I have to do? I have to play the console port. Oh no. Oh, sweet Jesus. For those of you that don't know, there were 4 separate ports of this arcade game put onto home consoles. Those being for the NES, the Sega Genesis, the Game Boy, and the Game Gear. Oh no. Well, I suppose I should start with the NES and Genesis versions just to not torture myself yet, as from what I've heard, they're actually half decent. They didn't just try to decompress an arcade classic, instead, they tried to make it more of an original experience, and I really admire that about it. I love when developers do that. So, without further ado, let's check it out and see how good or bad it could be. Unlike the arcade version, this version acts as more of a platformer as opposed to a beat-em-up, which, hey, in my eyes is perfectly fine. I love both genres, but I've always favoured platformers, so that's already a good thing. But then again, Bubsy is in the category of platformers, so really this could go either way. So without further ado, let's jump in and play as Iron... What? You can only play as Captain America and Hawkeye in this version. They still decided to call it Captain America and the Avengers. I'm going to criticize the name of this game more times than I can count, but in my eyes it's perfectly fair. Regardless, allow me to go over the movesets. Captain America has plenty of moves, of which include throwing his shield. However, this can only be done while he's standing, so if you're ducking, you're essentially not allowed to use your shield. When your shield is not in your hand, you're also additionally allowed to punch, duck, and a lot more, I guess. He also has a few cooler moves, such as jumping in the air and landing on his shield. I can't think of a better name for it because they gave it no name, which can help you get over spikes, water, and other things. On the other hand, while Hawkeye's moveset is far more limited, it packs far more of a punch, which is something I really enjoy. He has the ability to shoot his trademark bow and arrow, while additionally being able to punch, just like Captain America. However, something that does make him better than Cap is the fact that he can use his bow and arrow while crouching. Not to mention, he can aim his bow and arrow in any direction, diagonally, straight up, no matter what, which in my opinion makes it far easier to deal with air-based enemies. Each of the stages have a hidden crystal, which is what you need to open the door to the exit so you can progress in the game. It's a neat mechanic, but in my opinion, considering it's not really informed at the start of the game that you need to find any of these crystals, you'll have to make yourself to the end, not realizing that the door is closed, and then you'll walk around the whole stage again confused, only to later find out you need a crystal. Captain America and the Avengers, more like Cryptic America and the Avengers, am I right? Traversing through the game, you'll find there isn't a large amount of enemy variation. After all, the only enemies are generic soldiers, air-based enemies, and whatever that thing is. Oh, and there's also Fireman, who in my personal opinion is a far superior villain as opposed to Thanos, and obviously should have been in Infinity War and Endgame. To be completely honest, there's nothing necessarily more I can say about the game. It's fun at first, but it gets really repetitive after a while. Considering the fact that the enemies almost never change, the level design is very basic, and there's nothing that really makes you want to keep coming back, there's no point in traversing that far. So if I'm being completely honest, this game gets a 5 out of 10 for me. Not bad, not good, it's okay. You know what's not okay though? The Game Boy port, which is exactly what we will be taking a look at right now. God save me. I'd just like to add that before I do jump in, whoever made this box art really needs to have seen the game beforehand. This looks like the most epic yet cheesy thing anybody could expect. And this is coming from this. This! My poor ears! I thought the NES soundtrack was disappointing, but this is just beyond anything. My ears are bleeding. Jesus! I suppose something that this game has over the NES version is the fact that you can actually play as other characters, those being Iron Man and Vision. So, yeah, in that respect, it's better than the NES version. And that is pretty much the only respect that it's better in. I suppose we should read the story so we can get a better understanding of this excuse. Red Skull seeks to conquer the world with a team of supervillains. He has used a mind control machine to bring them under his power. Now he controls their every action. Go at once, Avengers! Try to crush his evil scheme. Scene 1. Wait, that's not a part of the story. It sticks to the style of the beat-em-up as opposed to a platformer like the NES version, which I do respect, but you didn't do it well. If you want to aspire to be something, at least try. This is evidential that they couldn't even be bothered. Despite the fact that it follows the style of a beat-em-up, it still is just like the NES version, following no competence in level design or enemy variation. Given the game is in black and white, so it's almost impossible to tell the difference between enemies because the color variation does almost nothing, but still, I'm gonna complain because I feel the need that I have to. Samus? What are you doing here? This game is worse than bad. It's disappointingly and utterly terrible. And that's honestly the only and probably best way to describe it. So, all in all, no, there's almost nothing positive about this game other than the 4-character roster. So, you know what? I'm going to be harsh. 1 out of 10. That's all it deserves. I know this was a short portion of the video, but there's nothing much to talk about. All of it is terrible. If you want to see me talk here about how terrible the game is, all you'll hear is, it's terrible, because that's all it is, and it'll never be anything more. Now, as much as I want to talk about the mediocrity of the Game Gear port, does it really look like I want to spend that much on it? Well, I suppose that's all for today's daily show of why. What do we have up next time? Oh, hey, a decent fighting game, a decent game, and Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Well, boy, I can't wait. Then again, the episode after that, we're probably going to have something even more terrible than what we reviewed today, but what do I know?